Hi, I'm Terry Likes, and welcome to another edition of Communication Connection. This is a program that focuses on the accomplishments of students, faculty, and alumni involved with the Department of Communication. Communication is at the heart of what we do on a daily basis, and the media plays a large role in the dissemination of information. And joining us to talk to us about this today is Instructor Jason Hibbs, who's part of the Department of Communication. Jason, welcome. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me, Dr. Lang.
Jason, you've worked in the media. Now you've taught media-related courses for quite a while. Tell us about your background in the media and how you wound up here at Mississippi State.
Yeah, well, Dr. Likes, if you want to go all the way back, as a freshman at a university in Kentucky, I wasn't sure what I wanted to do. I was interested in media, a little interested in production, but it was in your intro to news writing class that the light bulb about news journalism really turned on. And I thought, I could have a career as a news reporter. I love this. You inspired me to pursue that career. And fast forward these years, I've spent 4 years as a reporter, 2 years as a TV newsroom manager, and ended up going to grad school in the middle of those two, and started teaching part-time while also managing. I wanted, when I had the opportunity to teach full-time at Mississippi State, I was hoping to inspire students like you inspired me to pursue a career, in news or really any media field. And, the reason why Mississippi State and why I came to Mississippi State is I did have some other options, both in management and higher ed, but I was excited about what the communication department had going on, the faculty, the staff, and just the opportunities for students ranging from radio to sports, opportunities at the University Television Center. And I was really excited by what had been a plan for quite some time whenever I first joined, the new, and now this has come to fruition, the new MaxSouth Digital Media Center. Thanks to a gift from MaxSouth, we have a state-of-the-art TV studio and control room in the Mitchell Memorial Library where students can get a lot of hands-on time with the equipment that we were using at the TV stations where I've worked across the country. And a lot of times when students and parents come to tour the facilities, they really get excited by the studio, the green screen, the set, the desk, and all that. And yes, that is really nice as well. But what excites me is what's in that control room, because it's the equipment, again, that the students are going to use when they get out into their professional career. So a lot of good things were happening and continue to happen at the communication department. So I wanted to be a part of that. And it's been a good ride.
Well, we've been glad to have you here. And I guess when most people think about a college class, they think of a traditional lecture in a classroom. But one of the classes that you have taught is working in that studio with a live television newscast for the students.
Yeah, it's hard to teach this stuff in a traditional classroom. I don't really know how you would. The best way to do it is to get students in that environment and kind of a trial and error thing. Yes, they're going to make mistakes, but they learn from those mistakes. And that we have a couple of 30-minute shows a week airing on MSTV. And that gives them that real deadline, that the show must go on no matter what type mentality that we really drill into students, because that's what's going to happen once they graduate. So it's a good experience beyond the traditional classroom.
Well, and not only producing the live newscast, but a lot of success. The students have won a lot of awards from this newscast you've been overseeing for the last couple of years.
Yeah, 2019, 2020, they've been some good years for the communication department. We have won a lot of awards, and what is encouraging to me is they're not all for the same thing. It's not like we had one story that kept winning awards. It's been a variety of stories and newscasts in competitions across the country. We've won a lot of regional awards, but we've also won some national awards. And like I said, ranging from flood coverage to breaking news, fire coverage to just overall excellence. And with that, or general excellence, that was from the Kentucky Louisiana Associated Press. And with that, they look at a range of newscasts. And, they want to see not what are we doing on our very best day, but just what are we doing every day. And we won a general excellence award for that. So that's encouraging.
Well, congratulations on that. I know that we talked about different types of courses, and you also teach a variety of writing courses, writing for the media, writing for the electronic media, which is more of a news-related course, and yet faculty do more than just teach, so you actually wrote a screenplay, didn't you?
Yeah, I sure did. It is an LGBTQ screenplay, and the synopsis of this is a closeted, bigoted Southern evangelical minister confronts his sexuality when he gets a grim medical diagnosis and an unexpected visit from a long-lost childhood friend who is now openly gay. So he must come to terms with who he really is. Meanwhile, the family and the empire and the church that he built crumbles as he becomes his true self. But there is one family member who is emboldened by the old man's courage. And that screenplay was featured at a national convention in Burbank this year. And I'm just honored. I hope now that someone will hear this and turn it into a movie. But it is good because when we're talking about this in class, and in one of my classes, we do go into more creative forms of writing, and we talk a lot about screenplays, and I have some students even write a small screenplay. And we can talk about, at least I have done this. I can tell them what to do to at least get recognized. So thank you for mentioning that.
Well, and you mentioned Burbank, so that was the site right before the pandemic hit and everything kind of shut down. The National Broadcasting Society had its annual convention in Burbank. Tell us a little bit about that and what was being discussed from a media perspective as we kind of transition into how all of this has impacted our daily lives.
Yeah, well, thank you for allowing me to go to that. This was a unique, I'd never been to this particular convention before. This was an unusual year with coronavirus rapidly approaching while we were there. But we took home a couple of awards from that. The communication department did. Our friends over at the Reflector won a couple of awards. So that's really nice. But the main discussion there was kind of where do we go from, or one of the main discussions, where do we go from here? What do we do? And to be honest, at that time, I think a lot of media professionals didn't really know how we were going to deal with this situation. Since then, I think a lot of people have learned what works and what doesn't work, and many people have been surprised by how they can work from home and how it works. A lot of producers are now working from home, and I know personally a lot of them didn't want to, but they've made it work.
Well, and speaking of that, you've had to make it work because, again, teaching in an unusual environment, after spring break, all of the classes went online, and yet students still had to create content, and they had to do so using their phones and other forms of communication, didn't they?
Yeah, this excites me because I will be honest, Dr. Likes, I wasn't sure how this would work. But what I did is, what you said, we still have to have our deadlines. We still have to produce content, even if we're not gathering in the studio weekly like we would. They still need to produce that content. So I gave them two options. We have, in the communication department at Mississippi State, we have access to a database of video, raw footage, interviews shot from stations across the country and even the world. So option number one was gather information and content from that database and kind of put together your own story using video that has been shot by others. It could be a national story or international story. But option number two, which is what really excited me, and a lot of students took advantage of this, was yes, you may be kind of trapped in your own home. You may be back home. I had one student who had to go back home to Florida. I think I had a couple in Atlanta, and then a bunch of students from different places in Mississippi. And I said, wherever you are, there's news there. And we teach that, Dr. Likes, as you well know, in the lower level courses. News is all around you. You just have to look for it. So they were enterprising some really solid stories, literally from their backyard. I lifted the ban on speaking to friends and family members because typically that would be a conflict of interest. But in this case, I said, if you need to interview your mom or a friend or something like that, that's okay. And we had stories on how churches were making last minute changes to their worship services and going online. We had stories about how the publishing industry was impacted by COVID, how a lot of teachers, how education was impacted. Just a lot of really good stories because students, I think, were forced to look harder for news because they couldn't go as many places. They had to look for news where they were. And like you said, they did all of this with their cell phones and their laptop editor and produced some really good content.
Jason, there's just a short time left, but you've had a lot of success, as you just mentioned, and we're thankful for that. But it is time for a change. You want to tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, it's bittersweet. I have accepted a position at the University of Toledo teaching broadcast news and media, and like I said, I'm sad to leave my friends and colleagues at Mississippi State. It's certainly, I'm really only leaving for reasons outside of work and beyond work. It's been a wonderful experience at Mississippi State, so I will miss all of you and plan on keeping in touch. And I have a social media, my former students who want to be, we all have our own little private social media page where we keep up with each other. They tell me how they're doing in their career, what's happening where they work. We talk to each other. So I may be moving a little further up north, but I'm not disappearing.
Jason, in about 30 seconds, how would you say Mississippi State has shaped your life and career?
I think it's made me a better teacher. I've had a lot of support from faculty members, and not just faculty, but the staff. The director of the University Television Center, where you are, David Garraway, he's been a big help to me. I can't even think of all the times where someone has said, you're doing this, why don't you consider doing it this way? And I think, well, that's a good point. So I've had a lot of help, a lot of mentoring at Mississippi State, and I won't forget that.
Well, Jason, we certainly appreciate the impact you've had here with the students and the faculty and the alumni. You've been here 2.5 years. We certainly wish you well and your new endeavors as you move on to Toledo. And we hope you enjoy the snow because I won't miss that. But thank you for joining us here on Communication Connection, and thank you for watching. That's all we have for this edition. Please join us next time.